without further ado, would like to introduce Ryan Hana joining us to break down the DeBrincat trade. Shout out.
Oh, man.
Ryan Hana of Wing Wheel Podcast. How you been, man?
It's good, guys. I feel like it's silly for me to ask. We just talked, 5 minutes ago, and then the DeBrincat trade dropped?
Yeah.
Honestly,
No, doing
it's
good.
couldn't be better timing. So
a lot of build up for it. Just like, come on, I'm just waiting for it to just happen.
a lot of build up. It feels like the Parise and Suter all over again, but now it actually happens. So I just want to hear
Throwback.
You remember that offseason though? It was, oh, they're getting Parise, they're getting Suter. It's like, no, they're both going to the Wild. It's like, well, there it is. But I just want to hear your initial reactions to this, because obviously Stevie got his guy. He got him for less years and less money than most people expected, and he didn't have to give up a top-tier prospect to do it.
Yeah, so first off, the reaction on getting Alex DeBrincat, no matter which way you cut it, this is going to make the Red Wings better. You could be the biggest Red Wings pessimist in the world, and you can't deny that getting a guy who has scored 40 goals or at a 40-goal pace multiple times in his young career, that's exactly what the Red Wings needed. The Red Wings would have been fine getting a 25, 30 goal scorer, but to get the most premier goal scoring player available in the trade market, even in free agency, he was better than anyone out there. That doesn't happen for Hockeytown, not in this generation. The last time the Red Wings got a big name player like this who wanted to come to Detroit and actually landed in Detroit, you have to go back to Marian Hossa in 2008, in my opinion. And it just hasn't happened since. So this is the turning of a chapter, not to be too dramatic, but for the rebuild. And, fans have every reason to be excited. And then once you get into the details, like you mentioned there, like the trade value that Detroit got, they did not overspend at all. It was a very reasonable trade. I would call it really favorable for Detroit. I think they won that trade. And the contract is outstanding. We'll get into it in a minute, but this is the best case scenario for the Red Wings. And you honestly could not, if you wrote this before it happened, people would have called you crazy on Twitter for saying you're just you're being an Eisman fanboy.
Yeah, honestly, it's amazing to see, and that, like we said, you didn't have to give up Mazur or even Lombardi or any of those guys.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy.
There's truly no negative for like getting a guy like this, but I do have a question on like the fit, and just because I was talking to Spinney about it earlier, and one of my buddies over the weekend was telling me like last year his plus minus was like minus 31. He's a smaller guy. Obviously, Ottawa wasn't great last year. Like, is there any overhype coming along with DeBrincat, or you think he's gonna be everything we're expecting him to be on this team, and they're going to the playoffs or something?
There's always a risk of overhyping a guy, especially for a team that's been starving. Like, you could be, starving and any food will look good to you, and you run the risk of that if you're a Red Wings fan right now. But DeBrincat is one of the most premier goal scorers in the NHL over the last 3 or 4 years. He's up there among the best in terms of his actual goal output. I think what you can do is temper your expectations. I don't know that he's going to be 40 goals in his first season with the Red Wings. Their supporting cast is good, not great, and will that fit be there right away? That might take time to develop. You mentioned his plus minus. I don't really love that stat to indicate how well a player is doing, because a bad team will drag everyone's plus minus down. Is he a outstanding defensive player? No. But the Red Wings have a lot of outstanding defensive players. They hardly have any goal scorers, if at all. So for me, any drawbacks on the defensive end of the puck are wildly outweighed by what he brings offensively. And he's not just a goal scorer. He's really, really good with the puck too. He's smart with the puck on his stick. He's actually kind of underrated as a playmaker in my mind. And so he's a facilitator of offense in more than one way. So I don't think he's just he's a dynamic player offensively is what I'm trying to say, which will help the Dylan Larkins, which will help the Lucas Raymonds, not just because he'll be setting up the puck to them or finishing their passes, but because he's going to draw pressure away from them and allow them to breathe a little bit on the ice.
Great point.
And I've seen a lot of line combinations getting thrown out there. What's going on? How they're going to fit? Where they're going to fit? Where? I'm not going to ask you to break down the whole roster, but how do you think that top six is going to shake down those first two lines?
There's never really a guarantee in terms of how the line combinations are going to shake out. We all are thinking, oh, is this going to be DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond? That's what my opinion would be, is that we'll see some kind of version of that. But you also have David Perron there, who's a very capable player, especially off the wall in the power play. But, even in the lineup, he produces at a really good rate. I think Kubalik is a guy who fit into Detroit's middle six, who's now gone. So in the top six, you'll see some version of, DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond, and then I would guess JT Compher, but it could be Andrew Kopp. It's a toss-up. They could throw Berggren up there. I would guess that he slots in lower down the lineup, probably Fabry and Rasmussen. You'll see a mix and match there. So depending on who makes the team out of camp, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Kaspers, the Mazers, the Soderblums. But let's say Kasper steals a spot, then you might see a Veleno or a Kopp or a Comfer swing to the wing. But no matter what, you're going to see Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Perron, and then one of Kopp or Comfer in that top 6.
I saw a lot of people putting in there. Obviously, they're reacting and doing a lot of stuff fast, but putting Rasmussen as the 4C, and I was just like, no. He's so good on the wing, and he's so much better than a fourth-line player. Like, you can't do that to him.
No, I agree. And the Red Wings have center depth now. Like, they have Kopp, they have Comfer, they have Veleno, and they have Kasper waiting in the wings. Are any of those guys, like, outstanding number 2 centers in the NHL? No, but they're sufficient. Between Kopp and Comfer, you can get away with one of them as your second-line center, and Veleno as your 4C, that's great. I agree. Move Rasmussen to the wing. That's where he excels, and that's where he makes the biggest impact for Detroit.
Now, I don't know if you guys have any betting sponsors or not, but if you were a betting man, do you now put the Detroit Red Wings as favorites to make the playoffs? Let's kind of look at the Vegas Knights and how they went about this season. It felt like more of a team wins, and they were dominating guys. Like, I don't think anybody tonight scored any more goals than the top guy in the Red Wings this year. But anyway, does that still make the Detroit Red Wings a playoff team?
If I'm a betting man, no. I don't put my money in that direction. If you like long odds, though, it's not crazy. I don't think this is like a no chance in hell situation. Not at all. The Red Wings could very well be in the mix, but a lot of things have to go their way. They have to stay healthy, which is hard to do. They have to get outstanding goaltending like they got for good chunks of last season, especially at the beginning. But for most of the year, they have to have all their new additions really work out for them in a big way, which includes DeBrincat, which includes Daniel Sprong, which includes Goss Despair, all providing offense. And they have to have the kind of improvement that you need to see from Lucas Raymond, and you hopefully see also from Jonathan Berggren. All those things are possible. I don't want to say any are unlikely or it's stupid to think that improvement can come, but all of those things happening at the same time at the same season, to me, it's a little bit of a longer shot. So I don't want to count them out. I think you wouldn't be insane to say they could be a low to mid 90 point team, but that is it's a hard guarantee. It's hard to guarantee that team is going to make the playoffs. So there's certainly a chance. I think this team has every right to say they can be competitive throughout March and even early April and make noise for that playoff spot. And I certainly think it's possible, but we're still going into this year without Bertuzzi or Verona. And before we knew they would be missing all of last season, those guys could have added up to, 70 goals, and that wouldn't have been crazy to say. So
What is that jump for Lucas Raymond for you? I know we talked a little bit about last time you were on too, but like, what are you expecting to see? What do we need to see from him for you to feel comfortable that he made that leap?
Well, let's look at the counting stats, and that's not the only thing. But last year he put up 17 goals, 28 assists, and that's a drop in both goals and assists from his previous season. I think he could easily be a 60 to 70 point player consistently in this league, and that's probably like a baseline in terms of the kind of game he plays in his skill. He needs to work on his strength again. He did that before he came to the NHL, and it paid dividends in his shot. I think you need to see that. Teams are playing him hard. They see a guy who's not the biggest guy in the world, and they're going to just grind him all year, especially if you're one of Detroit's most talented players, which Lucas Raymond is. So he has to get stronger. He has to get stronger on his stick, and he has to find the open space and not be afraid to use his shot either. He's too talented of a shooter to be, not leaning on it more often. I think he could have easily been a 25-goal guy last year, but the shooting luck, I'll call it, but the finishing just wasn't there like we saw the previous season. We're not talking like a massive difference. A drop from 57 points to 45. It's not unheard of for sophomore players, especially now that teams have your tape on you and they know how to game plan against you. But he has to kind of adjust to the way the game is played physically, and that's not to say like he has to go out there and punch guys in the nose. It's just that he has to be stronger on his skates, stronger on his stick, be able to generate that space for himself and really lean on that shot, which a little bit more muscle behind that, and that thing is lethal.
Yeah, and speaking of, like, we're talking about a little bit about line combinations and different things like that, but now when you add in DeBrincat on that power play, you got a couple guys on the power play that can really help out now in free agency and trades. What do you think Alex Tanguay goes with that first power play unit? Do you think it's as simple as just putting DeBrincat in there for Kubalik and having him run with, Perron, Larkin, Raymond, and then Sider or whoever you have back there?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the go-to. I actually last night on last night's Winged Wheel podcast episode, I said it might be Shane Gostisbehere as the number one power play quarterback, but Brad Crisco, one of my co-hosts, made a good point. Because of handedness and Mo Sider's right-handed, it might be advantageous to have him there. But DeBrincat's going to be your first power play guy. Dylan Larkin is just too valuable, especially in the high danger areas, to ever move him off the first power play, at least as we see it now. And, Perron on that half wall on the left side, unless someone beats him out of that spot, he's just lethal from there. Like, he is so good at protecting the puck, and the way he dishes it out is, really underrated across the league, actually. So I would say that's probably what you'll see. I think a good version of Lucas Raymond next season's staple to that first line power play. If he can do it, but he's going to have to beat someone out potentially. But, the Red Wings now have a little bit more talent where you add in the Daniel Sprong types and, between Mo Sider and Shane Gostisbehere, you can have a good power play quarterback on either unit, that the second power play is no longer a write-off, which is good for the likes of anyone who's being pushed to the second power play unit, which might be Lucas Raymond.
Yeah.
Man, you guys are going to be pumped up. Because I'm hearing the 40-goal score out of DeBrincat and just him slapping him in, but I didn't think about like the pressure he's going to take off of guys like Raymond, and for him to develop or be nasty, be what he was his rookie year, at least or better. Mm-hmm. That's lit. I'm pumped.
It's pretty hype. I'm excited.
Well, Ryan, man, I appreciate you joining us. Anything you want to shout before we let you get going?
Yeah, I should do the usual Winged Wheel podcast. We dropped an episode last night. The news actually dropped as we were recording, so we had to ditch the whole episode and re-record it. But wingedwheelpodcast.com, at Winged Wheel Pod on Twitter, at Winged Wheel Podcast on Threads, Instagram, everywhere else. Find the show wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube as well. So appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a blast coming on Woodward Sports. You guys do a great job here. So looking forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah, definitely, Thank you, man. Appreciate you for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Cheers.
Real quick, final grade for the trade.
Trade A, signing A+. Can't give anything less.
Especially with the money you're saving on Zadina now, too.
Yeah.
That's, dude. Stevie Y.
Stevie Y doing his thing. Ryan, appreciate you so much, man. We're definitely going to have you back.
Thanks, boys. Soon.